welcome again into the television version of Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. Thank you for tuning in today. And as you know, if you're a regular viewer of Strategies for Living, we're all about helping us live healthier, happier, more peaceful lives. And we do that by inviting life strategists on with us.
Oh, Lord.
And how does that start this day?
Oh, gosh.
I think.
Let me say this. We've got two of my very favorite life strategists, and I think they will be yours too. Do you listen to Robert and Aaron in the morning? I have for years, across several different stations.
Thanks for bringing that up.
For the last year, yeah, well, you can't keep a job.
No.
But for the last year, News Radio 710 Keel
Just about.
is the home of Robert and Aaron in the morning. Congratulations, guys, on almost the first year on
Yes.
News Radio 710 Keel. What does that feel like?
It goes by so fast. As the older you get, David, you know, the faster things go by.
Yeah.
Not that I'd know about that, but
You know, and as far as the can't keep a job thing, you guys have been together. You are I don't want to say the oldest.
Thank you, appreciate that.
We'll not say the oldest, but the most mature.
I'd prefer oldest.
Oh,
Yeah,
let's
okay.
go with
Well,
oldest.
okay, you're the oldest radio combo in this market, I think, ever.
Really?
I think, ever.
Is it?
Larry and
Wow.
Mr. Weather, maybe, but I don't think continuous.
But theirs was a more physically oriented relationship,
Yes,
David,
it
unlike
was.
ours.
Yeah,
we
we don't
Ours
even.
gets physical every now and then.
Yeah, I know, I listen.
Yeah,
I listen.
Yeah, we have had our tussles, that's for sure. I was worried we were here for therapy. I was like, oh, is it time?
We'll do that later.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
we'll do that
Appreciate
later. Robert, you have you're home. You've come
Yeah,
home.
well,
You've traveled a bit
yeah.
in earlier radio days, but for the last 25 years back in Shreveport.
I moved back here in 96 when on the old Big Dog.
Big Dog, and that's where you guys
94.5, yeah,
first
yeah,
got
yeah.
together.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
And,
was when we first turned it on, yeah.
Yeah, which was in August of 96.
Yeah.
And the first couple of weeks, 10 days or so, I was solo, and she would bop in because she was doing news on all the different stations.
All the different stations in the
yeah.
group.
And she would kind of slide into the chair across the table and do the news, and we just started bantering back and forth. And the next thing you knew, we're both going to the boss and saying, why don't
Get
can
something
we do
here."
this all
Yeah.
the time?
Yeah.
Well,
And
the truth is, he wouldn't let me leave the room.
that's exactly right.
So other people would gripe because I wasn't coming.
You
to
weren't
their
coming to
room.
do their news.
So I said, well, I could tape y'all's news, and then you won't have to. So that's
And
what
that's
we
literally
did.
what happened.
Yeah.
And so we hit it off.
Now you're a news gal, originally from Baton Rouge.
Yes, originally from Baton Rouge.
Trained in journalism.
I have a journalism degree from
How
LSU.
the heck did you end up with this?
This cat, yeah, no kidding.
Thank you, Dave.
I'm not nothing against you. I'm talking about early morning radio. It's a different animal.
It
It's a
is.
different animal from what you're actually trained for.
Yes, and I've been doing mornings for a long time because I did Keel prior to he and I connecting.
Yeah.
But I love news. I love knowing what's going on around me, knowing about the world. And I missed that a little while we were doing the music stations. I missed a little bit about knowing who was doing what at City Hall and
Yeah.
here at Bipsy and all around the area. But now we're on Keel and I get to have all that back again. So I get everything I've always wanted in my life.
Including me.
Including Robert J. Wright.
Including Robert J. Wright. Did I just
couldn't,
say that?
It couldn't get any
Can
better
we
than
edit that out?
Yeah, for the network feed.
It's live, so.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Now, what time does your limo pick you up to take you to the studio every morning?
It's odd you would mention that because
Yeah.
I actually have a friend whose life consists of that.
Yeah.
Ours, however, you get there way earlier than I do.
Yeah, I get there around 4:30, quarter
Wow,
5. I wake up around 3:30. That's the number one question I get.
Yeah.
So what time do you
Yeah.
have to wake up?
Yeah.
And I wake up about 3:30 every morning, which means my next question is, what time do you have to go to bed?
Hmm.
So I go to bed at 10 o'clock is about max. That's about the max I can
That
stay
you can
up.
push it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get in.
At 5 till 6.
No, he's better now. He gets
Yeah.
in.
I am. See, but it's what she does is computers and scripts and stories and sound bites.
He's
Where
not allowed to touch buttons.
it's all in my head. The show
Yeah,
is
yeah.
my part of the show is in my head, and I'll make notes all day long.
Yeah,
And I walk in there, and you know, we had a guy who was just visiting this morning from Lafayette, and he said at the end, he said, "I've never seen anybody do a radio show like that." He said, "How do you mean?" And oddly enough, it was exactly what we had talked about, knowing he was coming in. And what Aaron had said was, he won't learn anything because we never talk to each other when the mics are off.
Yeah.
We walk in with our parallel lists of what we're going to do. And he said that very same thing to us at coffee this morning. He said, you guys, how do you know what you're going to do next? You don't talk to each other about what you're going to do.
Right.
And I said, well, I do. She does. It's just that I don't and she doesn't.
And sometimes they work well together. Sometimes we go way off the target. Sometimes vice versa.
But I got to tell you, a year, and I've listened a little bit, anticipating, our visit today. I'm a regular listener, but I've really intensified my listening in the last week, knowing we're going to do this. And a couple of thoughts. You guys have really gelled. You guys are really cooking.
Took about 17 and a half years for us to really,
but you're really
get down the
cooking.
timing.
But it's down. It is
Thanks.
down, and it's
Yeah.
fun to listen to. But the other thing that struck me is how lucky we are in the Shreveport market to have a Robert and Aaron to. I'm thinking specifically about the Shreveport, the Shreveport mayor's race that has just concluded, and what I heard through the course of that race. Now, the Times does its thing.
Sure.
The TV stations do their thing. But I don't know that anybody presented the candidates, all of them, and gave them the foundation, the
Forum,
place,
yeah.
the forum, to inform the electorate like you
Right.
guys did. And I don't know, I had to mention that to
We
you.
were worried we were too soft sometimes. Sometimes as a news person, I'm like, I don't want to let them get off too easy. But then we also want it to be fun.
Yeah.
We want them to come back.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know, we want them to be.
And I keep reminding her, from some of the interviews we've done, and we'll finish with I know Mary Landry was one, there were a couple of others.
Oh, Lord.
And she'll say, was I hard enough on them? And I'll say, Aaron, you're not going to trick anybody. We're not going to fool somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, if Chris Wallace or Bill O'Reilly or X, Y, or Z is not going to fool them into saying something, we're certainly not.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do.
Yeah.
And so we approach it as in more of a informal way. You get more flies with honey maybe, but I mean, you gain very little. Plus, a lot of people, every time we interview somebody, they're going to say, as soon as we finish an interview, the texts start.
Right.
Why didn't you ask X, Y, or Z?
Right.
And my
Right.
standard answer is because we'd really like them to come back.
Yeah.
No matter what their political stance or beliefs happen to be, the point is, if they're local, and whether we agree with them or not, we want them to come back.
This is the forum.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the
Don't,
forum
don't
you
get me
want them
wrong.
to be.
We want to. We do, and we ask the questions about the things that matter, but we try to be nice about it.
And I think you are. That comes across.
Okay, I
You
hope.
guys come across as nice guys. However, you guys also come across, in my humble opinion, as professionals.
Okay. Well, that's a good to hear. I think that's kind of cool.
I'll work on that.
Yeah. Okay.
What's-
We have fun. I know that.
What's the hardest thing about what you both do? Robert, what's the hardest thing about what you do?
Later in the week, it's a black hole for material. I mean, it's 5 6-minute segments, 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I've told people on KVKI or on 94.5, I would tell people, when we're done talking, there's always something next. There's a commercial next. There's a
of
song
music,
next.
yeah.
There's always something else.
Yeah.
On this, you know what there is after me? There's more me.
More you.
We
So-
joke if we don't have guests tomorrow, which we don't, by the way.
No.
He has a saying which we can't use on your TV station, but
Thank you for
he says, so tomorrow it's just going to be a lot of jokes and
Stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
As Robert has already pointed out, we have impressionable folks, young folks
Right.
here, wanting to be
Yep.
future Robert
Aim
and Aaron.
higher, kid.
Yeah,
Trust me
yeah.
on this.
So there are days when we have a lot of jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
And some days they're great and they're magnificent and we fist bump and we had a great day.
Yeah.
Some days we get flushed.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, that really sucked. That wasn't good.
What's the hardest thing for you?
Golly.
I'd say me probably about 8:15. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he really is not. We get along famously, to be quite blunt. And if we have a bickerment, which bickerment, is that a word?
I've told you before, last time we were here,
Yeah.
it was one big fight in 18 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
But you let us eavesdrop on that, and
Sure.
you know, we're all voyeurs.
Yeah.
In a sense, well, voyeurs would be what's the word for would be the word for eavesdropping. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's right about that. I think fill in those holes, because I typically schedule most of the show, so I book most of the guests.
You
and-
book the newsmakers, and of course
Yes.
you've got those journalistic. You've been in this market for years and years, so
my
you've
cell
got
phone's
to.
highly valuable. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna-
Oh yeah. Yeah.
She
back that
her
baby up.
phone froze. No, she
Oh,
didn't. Her
you
phone
should've
froze
seen.
last week.
Oh, no.
And she had 3 IT. Her phone locked up, her iPhone, and she had 3 IT guys trying to unfreeze it. And she's got what's it called? Not an Ether cord,
USB cord,
USB
yeah.
cord
Yeah.
going into the
Yeah.
computer. And I walked in there and I say, "Is something wrong?"
About to
And she
cry.
looks at me and she says, "If my phone dies, this radio show is over."
Because seriously, I have a lot of private people's numbers.
Sure.
And I'll book like today, this afternoon after we take our nap, which we both take a nap, not
to-
together.
Not together.
Good to know.
We'll,
Just
I'll
wanted to
text
clear
him.
that
I'll
up
say,
before
yeah,
we
please,
move
let's
on.
clear that up. I'll text him and say, hey, I've got this coming up, and I don't think we've ever said no. I don't want to do him. I don't think either one of us has said.
The McMillan guy, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
yeah.
we were unanimous in our
We
rejection.
debated over the Mario
Yeah.
Andrew thing for a while, but we're like, yeah, and it may be something he didn't give a rip about, but he moves forward with it, and there may be something I don't give a rip about, but we make it work, and that that's kind of the joy, the magic in it, I guess.
It does indeed work, and it's fun to listen to, and we got to go to break. So, folks, Robert and Aaron from News Radio 710 Keel in the mornings, 6 to 9 every weekday morning. They are our life strategists today. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Robert and Aaron. You stay with us. More to come.
Hey.
Ready to go?
Yeah, but the fire's not out.
Close enough.
Close enough? If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. I mean, the next thing you know, you've torched our whole neighborhood.
Which is why we're not going anywhere.
Exactly. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Thanks.
You believe this guy?
Are you trying to start a wildfire?
Sorry.
Pass the honey?
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
A promise was made. A promise that hit the beaches of Normandy. A covenant that split the skies over Berlin. A vow that captured Iwo Jima. A promise was made. A solemn oath that liberated Seoul. A sacred trust that defended Khe Sanh. A pact that dug in Da Nang. A contract that weathered Tet. A promise was made. A pledge that stormed the desert in Iraq. A bond that patrolled door to door in Fallujah. An IOU that braved IEDs in Kandahar. A promise was made to America's veterans. A promise we all must keep. DAV fights for all veterans and their families so they get the health care, financial benefits, and support they earned. If you're a veteran who needs help or you'd like to help us keep the promise, visit DAV.org.
In 1977, in Johannesburg, South Africa, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. By the age of 9, he was already outplaying him. The odds of this gentle lad winning the Junior World Golf Championships at the age of 14, 1 in 16 million. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European Pro Golf Tours, 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the Open Championship once and the US Open Championship twice. 1 in 780 million. The odds of this professional golfer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference.
Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. Of course, you're watching Strategies for Living. I would remind you, you can listen to Strategies for Living. We're at News Radio 710 Keel, of course, Sunday mornings between 9:05 and 10. And today, here they are, Robert and Aaron in the morning.
Thank you, David.
From News Radio 710 Keel.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you know, my pleasure. I want you guys, in fact, you guys can be permanent co-host if you like.
Be happy to. We'll come in. How often are we going to let him screw up our schedules?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wait a sec, wait, no,
Yeah,
stop. No.
Time out.
She told me this morning,
Oh,
she
I
said,
did
don't
see
forget, we have to go tape the show. Tape the show.
Tape the show.
She said, we have to be at Bossier Parish Community College at 11 o'clock to tape the show with
Oh,
David.
no.
So Robert walks around the corner back there in the room at about 10:45, so I'm looking for David McMillan. He said, hey, he'll be here about an hour. I said, what? He said, well, are you here for that? I said, yes, Strategies for Living. And he said, well, that's at noon. I said, oh, we don't tape till noon? He goes, it's live.
It's live.
So instead of taping at 11, we are live at noon.
I love it.
I did not know either of those. I didn't realize the live, and I knew where it was 11:30ish or somewhere. So I thought, well, I better get him at 11. I'm kind of treating him like my ex-husband. You know, if
Good
he
strategy.
If he has to be there at 11:30, tell him be there at 11.
There is a strategy for living.
Yes,
you
it is.
just earned
Yes,
your
treat
life
all
strategist
men.
stripes.
Treat all men like your ex-husband. I think that's a brilliant
That
idea.
is a brilliant
See how
strategy.
far that works for you
No,
socially.
That truthfully was a screw up. I didn't remember if it was 11. Anyway, we're here.
And you're here, and you're on our radio every morning, every weekday morning, 6 to 9, News Radio 710 Keel. What is the do you ever get scared? You've been doing this a long time. Do you ever get the butterflies? Do you ever get scared? I mean,
the last time I would bet both of us were a little nervous was interviewing Mary Landrieu, because she had avoided, turned down.
yeah, you kind of felt,
And it was-
listening, you kind of felt that she and her people had.
Oh, they brushed me. They personally brushed me aside, and then they denied it, which I was a little upset about. But I wasn't nervous as much as I was feeling used, because I was like.
It was in the latter days.
It was
she was about
right
15
right
points
before
down.
the election.
It was right
Right.
before the general election, the first week of December, and she was trailing by 15 or 20 to Cassidy. And suddenly she wants to be our best friend.
Yeah.
And what's
Yeah.
worse than being nervous, and this sort of happened during the Landrieu interview, but it happens maybe twice or 3 times a year, and hopefully you're not doing this now, is that there will be interviews, and anybody who interviews does it. You're doing an interview, and you're a third or halfway into the interview, and you're not listening to a word they're saying. And that's really what happened.
That's really what
happened
happened
in the Landrieu interview. We both got, because she was going on, I mean, it was talking point town. I mean, she was Cassidy is you know, I mean, she had, that was the time of the whatever
She had to
financial-
make her last minute.
Yeah,
she had to make
yeah.
those points.
She's brilliant.
And
at
we
it. Give her
knew what it
credit,
was going to be,
Yeah.
and we weren't really paying attention. And then at one point, she asked us a question, and neither one of us heard it. and that's what made it one that we're not anxious to go back and listen to.
Only to find out that afternoon that it made national news, that we
Oh.
were mocking her.
Yeah, we
and,
kind of did.
It was on Fox News that night.
Well, we
and
ended up being on Fox News, yeah.
Oh, wow.
In fact, if you still Google local radio mocks Mary Landrieu or radio duo mocks, we're on the first page of the Google list. We're
Yeah.
still
love it.
8 out of the first 10.
I love it.
Because we really didn't mock her.
No, we were making fun of ourselves for
Because how bad we
her not
sucked.
being interesting
Yeah.
enough to listen to.
Yeah. What stands out as the most fun? What's the most fun in this last year? Most fun interview,
Oh, most fun interview.
Interview.
guest,
Ooh. Gosh.
situation that you've been involved with?
Today we had General Russell Honore, who was like the hero at Katrina.
Oh, yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
on with us again this morning, and he's been on a few times. He's just a dynamo. And I mean, there's many others, but I love talking to him. He's such a brilliant mind. And
Did you ask him about Brian Williams?
we did not. We were
And
talking,
any bodies floating by?
Oh,
in
we were
the
talking
French
to him
Quarter?
about Camp Minden. Of course,
yeah.
he's all up on that with his Green
It's
Army.
called Green Army, and his website is gogreenarmy.com, and it's an environmentally inclined organization, and he is not only amazingly on top of the Camp Minden stuff with the EPA, with the burn that's planned of the, 19 million pounds of the M6 propellant. But on top of that, he knew about the city on MLK out that way.
The big dump that was on fire for
The
so
dump
long.
fire. I mean, he is just
Right on top.
Yes, yes. He was fabulous.
The other one I loved was Cole Vosbury. Came in studio and sang to me, which was just
Wow.
and promised he'd sing at my wedding.
He
didn't
did, and he said, "When is that going to be?" She said,
Soon as I
"I'll
meet him."
let you know."
Yet to
Yeah.
to be determined. Yeah.
It could happen at any day.
Any day.
Especially since she treats men like her ex-husband.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite? We never really
Favorite
talked about
interview?
Or most fun that you've had in the past
The
year?
most fun is getting to have ideas and having the time to explain them and make a point. That's what I like the most about it. Is that there's not really have any constraints about what we can talk about.
Yeah.
I am a very politically inclined person, so to get to voice my opinions 6 minutes at a time is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
big
got to
time.
be.
And we disagree sometimes. We're not totally politically on the same page, and we disagree, and that's part of the fun of it.
And I think that makes it fresh. That
Yeah.
makes it entertaining. Who's more liberal? Who's more conservative?
Oh, I'm way more liberal than he
Way
is.
more
Yeah.
liberal.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she's way more liberal in the sense that she would be slightly to the right of center. I mean, I would
Yeah.
easily
Yeah.
describe
That's
myself
probably-
as a Tea Party guy
Yeah.
in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But since I have 2 sons in the Marines.
It's amazing how having 2 sons in the military will make one a right-winger.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, you asked what
absolutely.
we like the most, what I like the most. I love, and and I can see her now when I ask. I can almost see her roll her eyes. But not only asking her about her 2 sons, one's in the Marines in Hawaii, one is in the Marines in California, in the middle of the desert. But, I mean, these were little kids that when we started on the radio 18 years ago,
right.
they were padding around in plastic pants, and they would go behind the equipment, and I would say, grab them, they're gonna electrocute themselves like a dog chewing on a cord.
Yes.
And it never happened. But having her talk about, with such pride, her 2 sons, but as it relates to her telling the story about her dad, and oh, look, we have time.
Oh, my dad was a World War II veteran.
He was a
US
World War
Marine
II hero.
Hero.
Yes.
Listen to
He
this.
was a Marine at Okinawa,
Wow.
and he was awarded the Bronze Star for going in under heavy fire and pulling wounded Marines out.
I always say it's a Forrest Gump moment, for lack of a
Yeah.
better analogy. A Forrest Gump moment, but at markedly closer range. We're talking about the trenches were maybe 50, 60, 75 yards apart, and he would go up and through the barbed wire, and he kept dragging back 6 or 7 wounded Americans.
He never talked about it either. I have 5 brothers. He went on about getting a job and making money and supporting
And
a
doing
family.
what he
yeah.
had
So
to do.
of all the stories that we tell, of all the stories
Mm-hmm.
that she or I will retell, that's the one I never grow tired of, is her talking about her dad with such pride. I mean, you just see her light up from across the
Oh,
room.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so proud that my boys are both Marines.
Following in his footsteps, you got a tear out of me when you told the story about when you got surprised recently,
Oh,
right?
yes, yes. Christmas time, my oldest came in, and we were at George's Grill, and his girlfriend walked in, and she said, "Oh, hang on, I got to go get to the car and get your Christmas present." She goes out, and she comes back in with my oldest son.
With your son.
Okay, I'm boo-hooing at George's.
Oh, God.
I'm got tears all over my eggs.
I think you had a lot of us boo-hooing telling that story.
That was quite the surprise. I was thrilled. I was thrilled.
Yeah.
And my little one's home now. He's going to be assigned here for
Her little
helping.
one.
My little one.
Her little Marine.
Would you do all of us a favor and thank both of your young men for their
Absolutely.
service?
Absolutely.
For all of us.
My oldest son is JW. He's 21. He's a Bird High grad, and I want to thank him so much for his service. My youngest is John Justin, and he's also a Bird High graduate, and he is home right now, assigned to the recruiting station here for a month.
Fantastic.
And I can't thank him enough for his service.
Until he heads back to the middle of the Mojave Desert.
It's near the beach, though, isn't it?
Near the beach.
Sure, there's water.
Sand.
Yeah,
Yeah. What are you most looking forward to as this unfolds after the first anniversary and beyond?
Her winning the lottery, so she'll be out of our hair. Honestly,
You know, my prediction is if she did win the lottery, she would not be out of your hair.
oh, I guarantee you, she would be.
She may not be in your hair in the same
She would
way.
disappear so rapidly.
You may be interviewing her some on the phone, but I think she would still be with us.
You know, you did interrupt my vacation, and I did do an interview with him
Yeah.
from Hawaii.
It was like 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning in
Yeah,
Hawaii, and
'cause I
it was about
couldn't
7 o'clock our
sleep.
time.
I love it.
I just got off the plane.
Just seriously, I think he and I would always stay in touch. You know, I think we will always stay in touch no matter what happens. If, you know, he retires, I retire, whatever. I think we will always be friends. I mean, we always tell each other if we're going for a crazy weekend like this past weekend, if you need bail money, call me.
You mentioned retirement. We all hope that is no time soon. Folks, you got to listen. If you have not heard Robert and Aaron in the morning, tune in tomorrow. News Radio 710 Keel, 6 to 9, and every weekday morning. And don't forget about Strategies for Living on News Radio 710 Keel, Sunday mornings between 9:05 and 10, and find us at strategiesforliving.com. Robert, Aaron, thank you so much for being here.
My
You're
pleasure,
welcome
Mr. David. Thank you.
Great to
anytime.
see you.
Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living. We'll see you next time. For Robert and Aaron, I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan.